Hello everybody, Sir Leon here, and today we are continuing our mathematical journey. Today we will be looking at multiplication and division of decimals. And at the end of this video, you should be able to do those two things, multiply decimals and divide decimals. Now the thing is, you can easily multiply decimals on the calculator, but this skill will become very helpful when you want to answer questions in the paper one and you have no access to a calculator. So you still have to know how to multiply and divide decimals, although you can easily do it on a calculator because of the paper one in CSEC Maths. So let's head straight into the first part of this video. So to multiply decimals, we ignore the decimal point. We move the decimal point to the end of the number and turn all of the decimals into whole numbers. And then we multiply as normal whole numbers. And then at the end of the multiplication process, when we get our answer, we count how many times we move the decimal point in both numbers. And then we move it back into the decimal. And that will give you the answer. So the first question says, multiply 2.3 by 1.4. So let's turn the 2.3 into a whole number. So we move the decimal point to the end here. And then we move this one to the end here. So now we have 23 multiplied by 1, 4, which is 14. 23 multiplied by 14. So we know how to multiply this. We put a 0 under the 4. 1 times 3 would give us 3. 1 times 2 would give us 2. And now we have 4 times 3 would give us 12. So we bring in that 2 there. 4 times 2 would give me 8 plus 1, which is 9. And then when we add the answers, we'll have 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 plus 9 would give me 12. Put in the 2 here. And 1 plus 2 would give me 3. And then we count to see how many times we move the decimal point at the beginning. So we see move it 1 time here and 1 time here, so 2 times. So we have to move back the decimal point in 2 times. So the decimal point is here, so we move back 1, 2. So the answer would be 3.22. As simple as that. Let's look at a few more examples. The next one, 3.6 multiplied by 2.5. So once again, we move the decimal point to the end here, move it to the end here. So we have 36 multiplied by 25. So we put the 0 underneath the 5 and we multiply with the 2. 2 times 6 will give me 12. Bring in that 2 here. 2 times 3 would give me 6 plus 1 is 7. And then we multiply with the 5. 5 times 6 will give me 30. Bring in that 0 there. 5 times 3 will give me 15 plus 3 should be 18. And then we add up those two. We'll have 0 plus 0 is 0. 2 plus 8 would be 10. So you bring in the 0 here. And 7 plus 1 would be 8. Plus 1 would be 9. And of course, we have to move back in the decimal point based on the amount of times we moved at the top. So this is 1 and 1, which is 2. So the point is here, so we jump back 1, 2 times. So this answer would be 9.0, or we can simply say 9. Now let's look at another one. We have 1.2 times 4.7. So you move the decimal point here, or you move it out here. So this would be 12 multiplied by 47. 12 multiplied by 47. So we put the 0 here. 4 2s 8. We put the 8 here. 4 times 1 would be 4. And then we use the 7 now to multiply. 7 2s 14. 7 times 1 is 7. Plus 1 is 8. And then we add those two together. 0 plus 4 would give you 4. 8 plus 8 would be 16. So you bring in the 6 here. And 4 plus 1 would be 5. And of course, we have to move back in the decimal point 2 times. So the point is here, so we jump back 1, 2. So this is 5.64 as the answer. Let's look at a few more examples in which we have to move the decimal point different number of times. So we have 12.04 multiplied by 1.3. So we see we move the decimal point till to the end of the number. We jump 1, 2, and we jump 1. So we now have 1,204 multiplied by 13. So we put a 0 here. So 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. And then we multiply with the 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 3 times 2 would give me 6. And 3 times 1 would be 3. Then I add those two together. So 2 plus 0 would be 2. 4 plus 1 would be 5. 6 plus 0 would be 6. 2 plus 3 would be 5. And 1 plus nothing. 1 plus 0 will be 1. So now we saw that we moved the decimal point 1, 2, 3 times. So we have to move it back in 3 times as well. So the point is here. So we have to move back 1, 2, 3 because we moved it 1, 2, 3 times. So the answer would be 15.652. That would be the answer when we multiply 12.04 times 1.3. The next one we have, the last one for multiplication, we have 10.5 multiplied by 0.02. So we move the decimal point to the end here and we jump 1, 2, and we move to the end here. So now we have 105 multiplied by 002, which is the same as 2. So we multiply 2 5s 10. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 times 1 would be 2. So we saw that we moved the decimal point 1, 2, 3 times. So we have to move it back. It's here. Move it back 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So we'll have 0.210 as the answer. So 0.210 is the same as 0.21. So either one could work. Now let's move on to division of decimals. Now this here is very interesting. So when dividing decimal, the objective is to make the divisor fraction the whole number. So that is the whole aim. So when we, for example, if we want to divide 6.84 by 2.4, we have to make this into a whole number. We're not changing both the divisor and the dividend to a whole number, just the divisor. But the thing is, when we move and change the divisor fraction to a whole number, the same amount of times we move the point there, we must move it the same amount of times in the other decimal. So for this example, we move the decimal point here to the end. So we moved it 1 time. And because we moved it 1 time in that number, we must also move it 1 time in the other number. So in this case, we're not moving back when we're done. We're just making it easier to divide by changing the divisor to a whole number. And based on the amount of times we move the decimal point to turn the divisor into a whole number, we must do the same thing for the other decimal. So this will be 68.4 divided by 24. So 24 can go into 6 0 times. So that can go 24 times 0 is 0. So we subtract, we get the same thing. So now 24 can go into 68 2 times. And 24 times 2 will give me 48. So I subtract 48 from 64. So this will give me 20. So 24 cannot go into 20. And we're at the decimal point. So we add the decimal point at the top here. And we bring down the 4. So this will become 204. So 24 can go into 204 8 times. And 24 times 8 would give me 192. And when I subtract this, I'll get a value of 2 from 4 would give me 2. So this will give me 1, more 1 there. So 9 from 10 would give me 1. And 1 from 1 would give me 0. So we see 24 can go into 12, so we add a 0 here. And 24 can go into 120 5 times. And 24 times 5 would give me 120. When I subtract this, I will get 0. So 6.84 divided by 2.4 would give me 2.85 as the answer. And that is how you divide decimals. So let's look at a few more examples to solidify our understanding of this concept. So we have here 7.56 divided by 1.2. So the first thing, we want to turn the 1.2 into a whole number. So we move the decimal point to the end. And because we jump that one time, we must move it one time here as well. So we will have 75.6 divided by 12. So we see 12 cannot go into 7, so that would be 0. So 12 times 0 is 0. We subtract, we get the same thing. We see 12 can go into 75 6 times. And 12 times 6 will give me 72. So I subtract that, 75, subtract 72, will give me 3. So 12 can go into 3, we're at the decimal point. So we put the decimal point at the top here and we bring down the 6. So 12 can go into 6 3 times. And 12 times 3 will give me 36. And I subtract there and I will end up with 0, 0. So 7.56 divided by 1.2 would give me 6.3 as the answer. Let's move on to the next one. So 15.75 divided by 3.5. So we turn this 3.5 to a whole number. We jump that one time, so we have to move this one time as well. So we'll now have 157.5 divided by 35. So we see 35 cannot go into 1, 35 cannot go into 15, 35 can go into 157 4 times. And 35 times 4 would give me 140. So I subtract 150, subtract 140. That would give me 17. And 35 cannot go into 17. And we're at the decimal point. So we put the decimal point at the top here because we are there in the division part. And I bring down the 5. So I see 35 can go into 175 5 times. And 35 times 5 would give me 175. When I subtract that, I'll get 0, 0, 0. So 15.75 divided by 3.5 will give me 4.5 as the answer. So now let's look at the last question. So the last question says 20 divided by 0.0002. So the objective is to turn this into a whole number. So we have to move the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And because we move the point for the divisor decimal 4 times, we must do the same thing for the other decimal. So this 20 here, let me write it at the top here so I can get some space. The point is here, we have to move it 4 times into the same direction. And the reason why we do that is because we don't want to change the whole setup of the number of the division. So whatever we do on one number, if we do it on the same thing, it's like we're doing the same thing to the same number. So this will go 1, 2, 3, 4. And you put zeros in place of all the spaces that we have. So this number will become now 200,000. So what we will have 200,000 divided by 2. So what I can do, instead of writing it like that, I know there's an easy way to write this. This will be 200,000 divided by 2. So this 2 ones and 2 divided by 2 would be 1. So the answer will be 100,000. So when we divide 20 by 0.0002, the answer would be 100,000. And this was simply achieved by changing the divisor fraction to a whole number. And depending on the amount of times you move the decimal point in the divisor fraction, we must do the same thing to the other fraction. And then we just divide normally and we will get our answer. And with that, it has brought us to the end of this video. I trust that you now have a good understanding of how to multiply decimals. And remember, when you're multiplying decimals, the objective is to turn both decimals into whole numbers by moving the decimal point to the end of the number. And then you multiply as normal whole numbers. And depending on the amount of times you move both decimal points, you must move it back in the answer that you get after you finish multiplying normally. And that will give you the answer. And for the division of decimals, the aim is to turn the divisor decimal into a whole number. So depending on the amount of times you move the decimal point to the end of the number, you must do the same thing in the other decimal. So if you moved it 5 times in the divisor decimal, you must move it the same amount of times in the other decimal. And then you divide as normal, and whatever answer you get, that is the answer. You don't need to do anything to the answer like in the multiplication. So with that, I'll see you in the next video.